After this, I'm about to do the grinding the next time because I'm too tired. Okay.
3, 2, 1.
I'm a metal sculptor. I work with a lot of metal, bronze, small scale, large scale sculpture, and I'm also an educator as well. Just a bit of background myself. I'm born in Hong Kong, and I went to Australia to study, and I've returned to Hong Kong 2.5 years ago. And right now I'm preparing a body of work. I'm going to be exhibiting at the Poon V54 program, and this body of work is going to be about the way how I respond to Hong Kong as a place, and how do I visualize this place through a body of work, both physically and conceptually. The inspiration behind my exhibition, especially the reinvestigating series body of work, is really from the perspective of when I first returned to Hong Kong after 16 years of being in Australia. When I first arrived back in Hong Kong, it was that kind of familiar and not familiar. It's kind of like in this awkward middle place, and I really wanted to understand this place as a whole. So through daily navigation around Hong Kong, I started to use Google Map, a convenient way of going around different places and just to get to know about Hong Kong in general. Through every single day use, I've started to realize Google Map from a bird's eye perspective. There's a lot of different buildings with different patterns, and then that clicked. Then I'm like, oh wow, maybe this is the way how I'm engaging, this is the way how I'm viewing Hong Kong, this is a perspective in which I see Hong Kong as. So, it immediately just, goes straight to me using these patterns of Hong Kong. Either they be commercial, either they be residential, it doesn't matter. It's about the journey and experience of how I've engaged with the city and the places I've been to. It's almost like a documentation in which I was in and I'm in currently. The interesting point is really coming from a self perspective. As I've mentioned previously, when I come back to Hong Kong, I'm kind of looking for my self-identity, looking for where do I belong, or really understanding as a person and how do I fit in. That sense of belonging is really important, especially when I come back to a place where I was born, but yet I'm a bit isolated or distant too, in terms of language, in terms of place. Sculpture and visual art really gives me that perspective, and almost using art as a tool to self-reinvestigate. 54 really gave me the opportunity to participate in the art programs, and I really support the art programs as well. And it's one of those things where it's an initial point for me to engage with this community, working with a lot of different people. 54 also is housed in a historical building. And in terms of the body of work, while I'm looking in Hong Kong in a more modern or contemporary perspective, I love the way how the contemporariness and the old school traditional, how it collides. And I think in terms of Hong Kong, there's a lot of that happening. How do the traditional often not go against, but how could the traditional and contemporary coexist? And I think for this exhibition, it really shows that those both elements can coexist, and and it's almost like a collaboration, just like the way in which how I engage with 54 as a young artist, as a contemporary self. I often use various methods in creating my sculptures. And it's a little bit different with the two-dimensional pieces or high relief pieces and the three-dimensional pieces. But initially they start with the same point, which is just playing around. I think playing around with different materials, playing around with what you have is a really good way of engaging, because art is supposed to be fun. Okay. And then after that, I just go with identifying the pieces that it requires. It means that the pieces has the most potential and speaks to the other pieces. If pieces doesn't speak to another pieces, it's not a piece of work. It needs to reinforce each other. It needs to then multiply, and with a lot of through a combination of different pieces, that's how you create that body of work. So there's a lot of different kind of experimentation, exploration, and afterwards is really purchasing the right material in an abstract way, purchasing the right material and just following the market, and that's how I do it generally.